Hey there, I'm Randy Zimnak, and in this episode we're going to talk about one simple trick that you can do to discover these weird things that might have happened at the properties you're looking to buy. I promised one simple trick, and I'll get to it in a second, but here's the story. Here's the situation that I'm still facing with this client of mine, right? So this investor of mine, client, bought this house already, so he owns it, right? I was not involved in that transaction, but he brought me in to take a look at the property because we're going to be actually putting the house on the market once it's renovated. So I'm walking through this house, I'm looking at it, I'm like, all right, well, it's just like any other rehab, right? It needs updating. And then we stop in the kitchen and he's like, oh yeah, I forgot to mention this to you, but there's something that took place at this house. I'm like, all right, like what took place, right? And well, one of his friends actually, who happens also to be an agent, Googled this property. And when they did, it's an unfortunate story that they found that took place there. And what really happened there, as I read through the article later myself, is basically, from my understanding, two men did a home invasion on this particular house in a really nice neighborhood. So this isn't common in this area at all. Right? So you would never even think that something like this could happen there. But it did. So there was a home invasion. There were two women inside the house back then, and this was a couple years ago. And the two women were stabbed. And one of them actually ended up in a hospital. And the woman unfortunately passed away, one of them in the hospital. And all of this was documented by a local TV station. And then when you Googled this property address, guess what? You actually found this story. You know, as an agent representing this client in the sale of this property, now it changes things quite a bit for me in terms of how do I approach the sale, right? So first of all, a lesson here is, if you can, Google the addresses of the properties you're buying so you could understand, is there anything weird that took place? In this situation, it was very unfortunate what happened. And then that way you, if you're the buyer in the situation, could make a decision. Do I even want to buy this house, right? Because I could tell you, working with many investors, representing them in sales, certain buyers that are looking to buy a house to live in, they will absolutely not buy a house with some story like this. If there was a homicide, if there was a suicide, there was even, you know, a home invasion, it will eliminate buyers, period, right? And I always say, hey, what is your pool of buyers on a particular house we're looking at? And I could tell you, if you have a backstory like this, our pool of buyers gets reduced by quite a bit, right, for this particular house. So now that we found out about it after the fact, right, they already own the house. So it's not that they could even do anything now, they own it, right? And now it becomes their problem, right, the investor problem. But it's also my problem, because now I'm the agent that's going to be putting this house on the market, and now I got to figure out, okay, what do I need to disclose? What are my legal responsibilities here? And in California, as an example, if someone passed away in a property within the last 3 years, we as agents have to disclose that. So that's number one. Well, as I read the story, I wanted to make sure if it clearly stated that in this particular sad situation, where did the woman pass away? Was it at the house or was it not? Because that actually will dictate my next move on what I need to do as far as disclosures. So in this situation, the woman actually passed away in a hospital. So technically now, we are not obligated by law to disclose that there was a death at the property, because there wasn't, right? However, we took the extra step and we called our legal hotline for realtors. I don't know if you agents that are watching know this, and I don't know if that's available all across the nation, but in California, we actually have a legal hotline. So we called them and said, hey, here's the situation. We explained everything. We asked them what and how should we disclose this, right? So in this situation, they advised us, yes, you know, you should disclose what happened. However, it doesn't have to go under the regulation of the 3-year reporting of a death because it didn't happen at the property. So it's up to you when and how you disclose it, but you should disclose that there is information about this home invasion, right, online, and that it actually took place at this house. Okay, so then as the agent, I put my agent hat on. I'm thinking, okay, you know, how am I going to do this so I don't also scare people too soon from even giving this property a good shot later, right? So now the property is actually active, right? We've decided not to disclose this up front in the confidential remarks that an agent can put on the MLS where other agents can only see. So we didn't put it there. We've determined that, hey, we're going to actually introduce this story or this fact once we actually get an offer and we negotiate the terms, we negotiate the price, and before we open escrow or we go under contract, at that moment I will be telling that agent that's representing the buyer about the story. So that way they can look it up, they could read it in that moment and make a decision, hey, do I want to buy this house? So I kind of want to play down the story, right? And that's why I don't want to bring it up early on, and then why I determined to bring it into the situation once we actually agreed on price, because I don't want the story to maybe impact of what they're willing to pay for the property, right? Because we don't know what that could do. So in this situation, we want to determine, like, okay, do we want to at that point move forward with the current buyer if they're asking for a credit, or do we just not pursue the escrow, don't go under contract, and maybe go with someone that doesn't really care about the backstory of this property? So the takeaway here is simple. Google the property address before you actually buy the property. And that's how we create a win-win.